Good morning, traders. How are you all doing today? Karibuni sana. Glad you could all join us this fine Wednesday morning. So apologies for yesterday. Unfortunately, there were some technical difficulties, so we could not end up having the session yesterday. However, we did end up sending in the watch list on the Telegram channel. So do make sure you are in the Telegram channel because that is where we do end up communicating all anything that is going on with Afriforex. So feel free to join. There should be a link in the video description. So let's jump into it. So for those who are new, my name is Mitch Kaniaro, and I'm a trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Now, during these sessions, we as the Afriforex team, we analyze the markets, we identify what trading opportunities we'll be looking at taking for the day, and we do share that information with you. So as usual, we do have the Afriforex team. They are here in the back office. So feel free to ask any questions or queries in the chat box. You will get a response, but I will also be looking to address any of those questions at this end of this session. So let's jump straight into it. So obviously we'll start off with our watch list. Now, yesterday and today, there's not really much of a difference. As you can see, our focus, in fact, even if we go from Monday, basically the watch list has been the same throughout the whole week. Our focus has been looking for selling opportunities on the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, as well as the Australian dollar. And we have been looking to mix and match these three pairs with the pairs on the buy side. So you can see that's the British pound, the yen, the New Zealand dollar, the euro, as well as the Swiss franc. Now, the only difference has been where, yes, or at least on Monday, both gold and silver on the buy side. Tuesday, silver did move to the sell side, and we can see gold has followed suit. So it probably means that silver does seem to be leading the dance there. So since unfortunately we did not necessarily have a session yesterday, there's not necessarily much of a review. So we'll just focus on today's pairs. But before we do that, we'll end up looking at a number of screenshots that we did manage to get. Seems like we did end up getting a lot. Seems that maybe when we're not there, people do end up really jumping in and focusing on the chart. So let's end up having a look at a few screenshots, then we will focus on today's pairs. So starting off with the screenshots, we'll start off here with Alvin. Alvin, you did manage to grab a very nice buying opportunity on the euro against the US dollar. We do know the euro did end up bringing a lot of strength as well as the US dollar did bring in some weakness. So very happy to see you. It seems that you are also very happy. You got a very nice buy as the price did manage to go to the downside. You can see the price is really going to the upside in your favor. Now, the one thing I would say, you have moved your stop loss above your entry, which is very good. But the main thing you should be following is the higher highs and higher lows of the market. So you can see the market did end up having a big push to the upside, did get a pullback, a higher low. And the fact that the buyers decided to now start pushing from this particular area, technically you should be able to move your stop loss just below that particular area, not on the line, but just below, just in case the price decides to potentially come back towards that buyer's area and still go to the upside. We've seen that happen many times. So rather than putting a stop loss there, you want to also give it enough room to actually move. But at the same time, you want to be secure that if the market does end up coming down, you've at least secured a good amount of pips before the market actually ends up coming to the downside. But otherwise, very, very well done on this trade. Alvin, keep up the great work that you're doing. So also next we get Bravin. Bravin, have to see a screenshot here. No surprise that you are trading silver. So very nice selling opportunities on silver. Can see you did end up getting two multiple sells. Can see the price has already come down in your favor. Very well done. And you can see your stop loss is already below your entry. So very good job on this trade, Bravin. We do know you are one of the Afriforex students, so very, very well done on this trade. So also next we did get Caroline. Caroline here. We're happy to see a screenshot here as well. You did manage to grab a buying opportunity on the British pound against the US dollar. Very nice buy within a buyer's area. We can see the price coming up in your favor. So very, very well done. You have already managed your trade by putting your stop loss above your entry. So it is a risk-free trade. So there's less stress at that point in time. And we can see the price approaching the high because you can see that's exactly where you put your take profit. So these are very, very good trade, Caroline. Keep up the good work that you're doing as well, and happy to see a screenshot. So next, we also did get Christine Mashera. You did manage to grab a buying opportunity or multiple buying opportunities on gold. It seems you grabbed the buy before the market did manage to come down, but we can see you got the buys within very good areas, one within this particular area here, another buy as it was going to the upside, and we can see you have already managed your trade with your stop loss being above your entry. Now, we do know gold did manage to go to the downside, and that's the reason why it's always best to manage your trade. And when the price gets to areas where problem areas, so ideally you can see there's an area where sellers did react from before, there was potential to react at that point in time. So I do end up hoping you did manage some of your trade. Remember, managing can be moving your stop loss as well as closing some of your position to make sure that you've at least secured something. If it does continue, you're still within the trade. But if it does come down, you have secured a good amount of money. So very, very well done this trade, Christine. So also next we get Dan Pickett. Up to see a screenshot here as well. You didn't mind to grab a buying opportunity on the NASDAQ. Very nice buying opportunity right there within the buyer's area. Can see the price going to the upside. We know this market didn't manage to come to the downside, but it seems like you grab the buying opportunity where the buyers are, and you can see the price already in your favor, and you have already managed your trade. So even if the price didn't manage to come down, you have at least managed to get some profit on this chart. So very, very well done, this trade, Dan Pickett. So also next, we did get Esther. Esther, happy to see a screenshot here. You did manage to grab a buying opportunity on the British pound against the Australian dollar. You can see you did grab your buying opportunity. That price is going up in your favor. Very well done. We can see your stop loss is above your entry. Now I can see you did manage to grab another buying opportunity earlier. You must have closed it just as the market was pulling back. Remember, it's always best once you end up seeing the momentum actually starting to go, rather than just closing your trade, to make sure at least, because sometimes could be scary, especially if you've not necessarily entered after a pullback. But the best thing to do is always just move your stop loss higher and higher. So if the price continues going higher, you're securing more and more profit. If it comes down, you've secured them a maximum amount, rather than maybe closing it early, then feeling bad later on that the price has really gone later, and you probably want to end up jumping in after. But still very, very well done on this trade, Esther. Keep up the good work and keep sending in your screenshots. So also next, we did get Metrine. Metrine, have to see your screenshots here. It seems like you were on a roll. So you did manage to grab some selling opportunity. I think this is on the US 30, the Dow Jones. Very nice selling opportunity in the seller's area there. You can see the price has come down in your favor. And you can see your stop loss is below your entry. So very, very good job on this trade, Metrine. You also got the NAS 100 as well. We do know you love trading the indices, both the NAS and the Dow Jones. So very nice selling opportunity within the area where the sellers price has really come down in your favor, and you can see you've secured a good amount of pips with your stop loss already way below your entry. So next, you did manage to grab more selling opportunities on the NASDAQ. Very nice sells right there. Waiting for the pullback, you have already secured a good amount of money. It seems like you grab very, very many selling opportunities. That as long as you're buying with buyers and selling with sellers, you are going to be, at least the probability of your trade working out does end up coming in. So very well done on this trade, Metrine. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing. So remember, guys, if you do manage to take any setups based on things that we do share, feel free to send them in to us. There should be contact details in the video description below. So let's jump straight into today's pairs. So we will start off. Sorry, just apologies for that. We will start off with the US dollar pairs, mix and match them with the pairs on the buy side, move on to the Canadian dollar, then move on to the Australian dollar, before we do have a look at the indices as well as gold and silver. Now, in terms of fundamentals, there is a bit of fundamentals coming out, not necessarily much during the London session. We do have some Euro fundamentals coming out, but that seems like that's the only thing coming out during the London session. Then the most of the news today will be during the US session. So maybe the London session might be slow. It doesn't mean that just because there's no news, the market will be slow, but it seems that there could be potentially more activity during the US session, but do watch out for that. So let's start off with the US dollar pair. So we'll start off with the British pound against the US dollar. Now, yesterday and today, at least this week, basically, our bias has been to look for buying opportunities. So we have identified 3 areas of interest where the buyers could end up working out from. Right now, we're within an area where the sellers at the prices definitely seem to have been holding for quite a bit of time. So we'll be focusing on these 3 areas to potentially look for buying opportunities. Now, if I do end up going up to a higher time frame, the 1-hour time frame, we can see this market has seemed to have been holding within this particular seller's area for quite a bit. Can see what we're waiting for. If the price is able to break and hold above this area, could potentially look for buying opportunities. But the fact that the price has come back down, we're within a very nice area of interest where we could potentially end up seeing some buying opportunities coming in within this particular area. So let's wait to see if we can potentially see some sort of sign that the big boy buyers are actually interested in this price. If we see the price coming down and we see that some big boy buyers actually reacting and the price actually ends up holding to the upside, we could end up looking for buying opportunities here. But be aware, if the price does end up going down a bit lower, or at least is not able to hold it in this area, remember the price can still come back all the way to the main buyer's area, but do watch out for this particular buyer's area as well. You can see this is where the market did react from yesterday. There's a potential that the price could end up reacting from there again. But if it not, we'll be waiting to see within these particular highlighted areas. So we move on to the next US dollar pair, which is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Yesterday and today, our bias has been to look for selling opportunities. We can see the sells did work out yesterday, but today the bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. So we have identified 3 areas of interest where we'll be looking for our selling opportunities from. You can see right now, we'll come back within a very nice area where the price did manage to break this area to the downside. We're just getting this market actually pulling back within this particular support and resistance area. So it will be interesting to see what ends up happening within here. You can see there's already a probe that has ended up happening. The price has not been able to hold to the upside, but that doesn't mean that it's right now to jump in on a trade. Because remember the timings, the market ends up, or at least has a higher probability of moving during one of the market opening times. So that could be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 4 or 5:30. So just watch out for that. It seems, at least on the 2 US dollar pairs, they do seem to be within an area of interest. So as we look at other US dollar pairs, we'll wait to see if that's actually the case on all of them. But for now, let's wait to see what ends up happening. Remember, if the price breaches and holds above the support and resistance area, then we'll be looking for selling opportunities a bit higher up within the main sellers at the top. So I hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on the US dollar against the Japanese yen. As we move on to the next pair that we do have, right here is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Now, in this kind of pair, our bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities. We're within a very strong bias area. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening within this location. Right now, it seems that the New Zealand dollar pairs are on a pullback, so you can see them coming down lower. We're within, so if I go up to a higher time frame, you can see we're within a very major bias area, or at least is a big area of interest where we could potentially end up finding the buyers reacting from here. Now, we have identified, or at least we know that there are some buyers, but we have also seen that this level does seem to be an area where the market does not necessarily hold. So the fact that we're within this particular buyer's area, there's potential we could end up finding the price just bouncing and coming back in and holding above. The main thing for us we want to see is the price actually holding above this area for us to look for buying opportunities. If it reaches and holds below this red SNR, then there's a possibility that this price could continue going to the downside. So for now, we'll wait to see if we can potentially get some sort of probe coming in, showing signs that the US dollar is going to show a lot of weakness for us to look for those buying opportunities. So this one we'll wait and see, but in terms of if we're ranking them, this one does seem to be on the lower side of it in comparison to the British pound against the US dollar and the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So we'll move on to the next euro pair, which is the euro against the US dollar. Now, in this kind of pair, our bias here is going to be looking for buying opportunities. So we have identified 3 areas of interest that the buyers could potentially work out from. Now, I know some of you might be wondering why we have this particular yellow level here, but we're seeing the price has actually gone through the upside. Now, if we do end up going up to a higher time frame, we will identify that this yellow support and resistance area is the main or true support and resistance area. We can see the price has not reached and held above this area. You can see every time it has attempted to go to the upside, it has come back down. Even yesterday, or at least, the price managed to go to the upside, but it never held above. So in this situation, it's still the same thing where if the price is able to reach and hold above, we would have been able to look for buying opportunities. But the fact that the prices are pulling back, we seem to be pulling back in an area of interest. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening if we can get the price coming back in within this particular area. If we see signs that the big boy buyers are actually interested and the sellers are slowing down, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities. Do make sure you manage your trade within this problem area. But remember, if the price is able to break and hold above, so there's a possibility if it does manage to go to the upside and it holds to the upside right there, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities as well on the euro against the US dollar. But for right now, it seems that the US dollar pairs are on a pullback. So hope that's clear. We'll wait to see what ends up happening as we move on to the next US dollar pair. This is the next and last US dollar pair we do have. Right here is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, our bias here is to look for selling opportunities. We can see the same situation on these US dollar pairs. We did manage to come down quite aggressively yesterday, so at least they did end up giving us some opportunities. But right now, today, during the Asian session, they do seem to be on a pullback. So that's exactly what we want. You can see they are approaching areas of interest, at least most of them. So wait to see what kind of reaction comes in within the US dollar pairs. So if we do end up seeing some big boy sellers coming in, especially if we do see a probe within that particular area, we should be able to find a very nice selling opportunity here. But be aware, if the price ends up holding above, then at that point in time, there'll be no trading opportunity just yet. We'll wait to see what ends up happening within this red support and resistance area for us to look for those selling opportunities on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So I hope the game plan is clear on all the US dollar pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the US dollar with all the pairs on the buy side. So right now, we're going to move on to the Canadian dollar pairs, do the same thing. So we'll start off here with the British pound against the Canadian dollar. Now, our bias here is to look for buying opportunities. The Canadian dollar pairs really did end up showing a lot of weakness yesterday. So you can see, as the price did manage to go to the upside, hardly gave any pullback during the Asian session. Did start moving a bit, or at least just before the US market did end up opening. Now, today, the price, since it is within this particular high area, there is nothing for us to do just yet. Remember, in order for us to look for a buy, we need sellers. So let's wait to see if we can end up actually getting this pullback coming in, potentially within this support and resistance area, for us to potentially look for buying opportunities here. So for right now, there's definitely no buying opportunity just yet. There's potential that the Canadian dollar pairs could start pulling back during the London session. Then we might find that the prices are within these areas of interest that we are pointing out during the US market open. So if that's the case, then that will definitely increase the probability of that trade actually working out within that area. So in this one, we'll wait and see what ends up happening. But remember, there's a possibility that if the Canadian dollar pairs are really showing a lot of weakness, then there's a possibility if the price does break to the upside and the price actually holds above, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities as well on this currency pair. So I hope the game plan is clear as we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now you can see the price has been coming down quite a bit. The yen has definitely been showing a lot of strength, but it also did end up showing weak, or at least the Canadian dollar was also showing weakness. So today, the bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. This market does seem to be trending quite nicely, as you can clearly see the fact that this market has actually found a support and resistance area. For that, we've broken this area to the downside. What we want is the price to potentially pull back to this same SNR before we're able to look for selling opportunities there. So right now, we'll wait to see what ends up happening since the pullback hasn't officially started just yet. You can see there's some sellers, or at least who are holding the market within this area, some small range. In order for a pullback to come in, remember, we need higher highs and higher lows. So once we do see that, it incites a few people to look for buying opportunities. We see aggressive sellers coming in, either within this area, or it could end up coming all the way at the top. But the main objective for us to see is when the big boy sellers are actually going to jump in. If we do end up seeing that, then definitely we should be able to find a selling opportunity on the Canadian dollar against the yen. But for now, we'll definitely wait to see what ends up happening on this pair. So hope that is clear as we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair. So right here, we have the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. Now, this is a currency pair that is quite interesting. We did have it for quite a while. Now, the levels were a bit lower. And remember, we did have this particular range that was ended up happening. And we did point out that the fact that the market was not able to actually make any new highs based on this particular price. So the price managed to get here, there were not enough buyers to actually take it up. Every time the price was going to the upside, and I remember pointing out that there's a possibility we need a better price than this. And that's the reason why we still had this particular area. And it seems that's exactly what the market did, coming back within this buyer's area and then taking off at that point in time. Now, one thing we want to be sure of, at least since we are still looking for buying opportunities, we'll still look for buys. But one thing we want to make sure is if this is an actual breach of this range. Now, those of you who have done our courses will note that whenever there's a range, at least let me just point out, whenever you see the market actually ranging, if there's a breach to the upside or to the downside, if the price actually holds within that area, there's a high probability that the market is actually going to take off from there. So similar situation if it was on the upside. So if right now the price has managed to break above this range that has been happening, if it actually ends up holding above, then we'll definitely be looking for buying opportunities. But be aware, if the price comes back in and holds below, then there's a possibility that the range is still in effect. This is just a huge probe, meaning that if that's the case, then buys might still end up working within the bottom of the range. And that's the reason why we still have this blue level right here. We wait to see what ends up happening. The ideal situation would be the price to actually hold within this particular area to the upside. And if you see the price holding above, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities. Do make sure you manage your trade within this seller's area. However, if the price comes back in and holds below, then chances are we could end up either coming back to this blue support and resistance area, or we could be coming back to the main buyer's area before we do end up seeing the price going to the upside. So in this situation, we wait to see what ends up happening. But right now, in the fact that we're within this buyer's area, let's wait to see if the price is actually able to hold to the upside. So hope that is clear on the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. As we move on to the next currency pair we do have, right here, it's a euro against Canadian dollar. We've had this pair since Monday. So if you did manage to grab a buying opportunity, then you can clearly see the price did manage to continue going, or at least holding to the upside. So today, the bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities. So we'll be focusing on these three areas of interest to look for these potential buys. So right now, the fact that the price has gone to the upside, it does look similar to the British pound against the Canadian dollar. So if I do end up having a look at that, you can see the price has gone all the way to the upside. So the game plan is pretty similar with the same pair. So the fact that we're so high up within the seller's area, we potentially need a pullback to come in. So we could end up waiting for the price to come back within this particular buyer's area. If we do see the buyers reacting, then definitely we'll be looking for buying opportunities within this SNR. But be aware, remember, if the sellers, due to the fact that the Canadian dollar has been showing a lot of weakness, there's potential that the market might still continue showing a lot of weakness. And if that's the case, the price could potentially break this area to the upside. If we do see it holding above, then we definitely will be able to look for buying opportunities there as well on the euro against the Canadian dollar. But for us, the preference would be waiting for a pullback. That does end up giving you a lot, much better risk to reward in comparison to waiting for the market to actually make new highs. So wait to see what ends up happening on the euro against Canadian dollar. But ideally, the game plan is the same on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. Now, moving on to the next, last Canadian dollar pair we do have, right here, it's a Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. We can see the same correlation on all these pairs. So this does seem to be looking as if similar to the British pound against the Canadian dollar and the euro against the Canadian dollar. The only reason that this looks different is because the Canadian dollar is the base currency. So it's basically just inverted. So the same thing is, or at least the game plan is the same, but the fact the price has come all the way down. We're still within an area where the buyers, and the fact that we're looking for selling opportunities, we need a pullback to come in. So there's potentially going to be a pullback coming in on all the Canadian dollar pairs. We do see it happening on one, chances are it's going to happen on all of them. And if that's the case, that's okay. We'll wait to see how the price approaches this particular seller's area. And remember, it being the Canadian dollar, it has a high probability of being more active during the US session, since that's when the Canadian economy is actually active. So wait to see what ends up happening here. The price is able to continue going to the downside, it breaks and holds below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities. But be aware, if you do see the breach happening on one, there's a possibility you might find that the breach to the upside is happening on the euro against the Canadian dollar, and the same thing also happening on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. So do watch out for that on the card pairs, but it does seem that it might not necessarily work during the London session. Seems like it might be more active during the US session. So I hope that is clear on all the Canadian dollar pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the US dollar and the Canadian dollar with the pairs on the buy side. So right now we're going to move on to the last currency pair we do have, which are the Australian dollar pairs, before we do have a look at the indices. Then I will also look to see if I can address any questions that have been asked at the end of the session as well. So starting off with the Australian dollar pairs, we'll start off with the British pound against the Australian dollar. Now, yesterday our bias was to look for buying opportunities, and you can clearly see the bias really did come in. So today the bias is still the same, looking for those buys, but right now we're within an area where there's sellers. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening within this location, especially if, or at least what could end up happening is one of two things. Now, the price could end up either coming in a bit lower, giving us more of a pullback, coming in within the support and resistance area before we're able to look for buying opportunities. And that the reason for that is because you can see the price has managed to go to the upside. We've gotten some sort of pullback coming in within this support and resistance area. At least there does seem to be some level there. And the buyers have come in aggressive. But be aware, we have not managed to make a new high just yet. So it doesn't mean that this price is definitely going to come to the downside, because we can see how aggressive these buyers manage to come to the upside. And the sellers don't necessarily look that strong. So there's also the possibility that if that does happen, where the sellers are not really that interested, you could easily find the price breaking this area to the upside, holding above before looking for those buying opportunities. But for now, there's also the possibility if the buyers, or at least the price is not able to go to the upside, then there's a high probability that this price was not good enough. So all those late buyers, anyone who is buying within this particular area, everyone would have their stop loss below this area. And that's the reason why a number of times you find the market actually coming down, inciting people to actually start looking for sells because all those late buyers were stopped out. And at that point in time, that's when you actually find the market going to the upside. So I know most of you think that it's the broker who is looking at for your stop loss. That's when the trade ends up, at least you've entered the trade, it just stops you out, then it goes. Usually that is the reason. Maybe it has not necessarily incited enough people to actually look for that trading opportunity. So in this situation, wait to see what ends up happening. Don't necessarily just jump in on those buying opportunities there. Wait to see what ends up happening if the price can come in a bit lower before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. So I hope that's clear on the British pound against the Australian dollar. As we move on to the next Australian dollar pair we do have, right here, it's the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, in this kind of pair, our bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. You can see their sales really did come in very nicely during the US session yesterday. We've gotten a pullback and we're back within this area of interest, or at least this support and resistance area. So we'll be looking to see whether or not we can grab some selling opportunities based on these three areas of interest. Right now, the fact that we're within an area of interest right now, wait to see what ends up happening. Not necessarily seeing signs of big boy sellers, except during the Asian session. So there's potential that this market could actually end up coming down within this particular area. But the fact that it hasn't necessarily taken off yet, or at least you're not necessarily seeing the sellers coming in. And if you're looking at the way the buyers are coming in, you can clearly look at the one candle going to the upside, 3 candles or 4 candles coming down. You can see 2 candles coming down, 2 big candles going to the upside. So the buyers do still seem as if they are a bit strong, not seeming like they've given up just yet. So don't be surprised you could end up finding the market looking as if it's breaking this area to the upside, stopping all those late sellers. And if you do end up seeing the price giving us some sort of probe or price action signal within there, then we will be looking for those selling opportunities. But if it holds above this SNR, then there's a possibility we could even find the price coming back to the main red support and resistance area for us to look for selling opportunities there. So wait to see what ends up happening, but definitely we definitely look for selling opportunities. Alternatively, let me just point out one thing. You can clearly see it does seem to be within a small range bouncing between this area. So if you do end up missing your trading opportunity, what could end up happening? You could find the price actually breaking this area to the downside. And if you do see it holding below, not like this where the price just came down and came straight back up. You want something as it's coming up, you want it coming up slowly. That will give you a sign that definitely the big boy sellers are there, and the buyers are not interested. And if that happens, there could be another selling opportunity at that point in time. So hope that is clear, at least on what the game plan is on the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. As we move on to the next Australian dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. Now, our bias, now you can clearly see, let me just go to a higher time frame. We do seem to be within this huge range, bouncing between these two levels. Now, I know it does seem as if it's a lot of pips, this being the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. This is just around 50 pips or so, around 55 pips. So it's not necessarily that much. But we do end up going down to the smaller time frame. It seems that there's something happening with the New Zealand dollar pairs. You can see the fact that for the past 2 days or so, this price has just been ranging, bouncing between these two levels with a range of around just 15 or 20 pips, 16 pips or so. So in this situation, there's nothing really much for us to do. This price definitely might not necessarily be good enough for us. And if we want to sell, we potentially end up needing a better price. Similar situation as we had seen on the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar, where they were both ranging and we did end up getting the market just spiking before it actually ended up going to the upside, or at least in that situation. So in this situation right here, this price might not be good enough. We could end up finding the price coming in a bit higher, bouncing off this seller's air before we're able to find those selling opportunities coming in. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. I can quickly go to the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. You'll be able to see what I meant. You can see the range bouncing between these levels. It was not good enough, but it managed to spike within an area of interest before actually taking off. So we could end up seeing something similar on the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. The fact that it's just ranging between these levels, this price, or at least the way the blue line is, might not be good enough, and we might need the price to come in a bit higher before we're able to look for those selling opportunities on this pair. So I do end up hoping that's clear on the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. As we move on to the next Australian dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the euro against the Australian dollar. And yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities. It seems that the trades really did work out yesterday. It seems maybe that's the reason why we did get a lot of screenshots. So today, the bias here is going to be looking for buying opportunities as well. We have managed to go to the upside, but we have seen something similar. I think it was on the British pound against the Australian dollar, where I did point out that even though we have these as our areas of interest, we can clearly see the price has given us a pullback. The buyers has attempted to go to the upside, but the sellers are not necessarily doing much. So there's potential that the price could break this area to the upside. And if it does hold above, we definitely should be able to continue looking for buying opportunities. But if the price is not able to make a new high after giving this pullback, it potentially means that this price right here is not good enough, meaning the price could potentially come back down a bit lower, coming back towards this buyer's area before the price does manage to go through the upside. So wait to see what ends up happening on this one. So it's either the price is actually going to break this area to the upside. Remember, if it holds above, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities there. But if not, then the price could definitely end up coming in a bit lower, inciting a few more people to look for selling opportunities before the buyers do end up taking off within this area of interest. So I hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on the euro against Australian dollar. So last but not least, we have the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So you can clearly see yesterday we were looking for sells. The sells really did work out. And today, the buyers is still going to be looking for those selling opportunities. But you can see right now, we're so close towards the buyers area. We've just made a new low. So it could have something to do with the Australian dollar pairs, where it seems that all of them have managed to do something similar, where they managed to come down, give a pullback within a support and resistance area, attempted to come down, but has not made a new low, meaning this price might not be good enough. The potential that the price could need to at least come in a bit higher before we're able to look for potential selling opportunities within this area of interest. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening on this one. But for right now, let's wait to see if either the pullback is going to come in within this particular support and resistance area for us to look for the sell, or if these sellers with price was actually good enough and these buyers are not interested to come to the upside, see the price breaching and holding below, then we'll be looking for selling opportunities there on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So I hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on all the currency pairs. You can see we've mixed and matched all the pairs on the sell side with the pairs on the buy side. So right now we're going to have a look at the indices before we do look at gold and silver. So we'll start off with the NAS 100, or at least the NASDAQ. Now, yesterday, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. The sales really did work out, or at least since the past 2 days, or past 3 days, really the NASDAQ has really come to the downside. So overall today, the bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So these are the 3 areas of interest that we have identified. You can see the market does seem to be trending quite nicely to the downside, especially if you compare how the how the sellers have come down. Even in terms of the candle, very strong. It did not necessarily take a long time for me to get from this point to this point. But now look at how long it has taken for the price to come back within this particular area. But one thing to also notice is when the buyer started off here, you can clearly see very strong buying move to the upside. As it came down, the buyers came up, not necessarily as strong. But now look at the way the buyers are coming up. They do really seem to be struggling. They're not as strong as they were initially. So that's usually a good sign for us, especially if we do see the buyers coming in struggling. But if they know they're struggling and we know the sells could come in, it doesn't mean that it's time to look for those selling opportunities just yet. Remember, the main thing, we need one of two things. Sorry, we need both things. We need one, the slowdown of the buyers. And at the same time, we need to see some aggressive sellers coming in. And if we do see both of those things, that will definitely increase your probability of your trade working out. So wait to see what ends up happening here. We do end up getting some sort of global price action signal, but be aware, the price, we will not necessarily seeing the big boy sellers just yet. This price could just continue grinding all the way to the upside very slowly as it's doing, but as it manages to get towards the main sellers area, remember the main objective for us to see is signs of big boy sellers actually coming in, and especially if it lines up with one of the market opening times. So wait to see what ends up happening on the NASDAQ 100, but definitely we will still be looking for selling opportunities there. So moving on to the next pair we do have, right here we have the Dow Jones. So on the Dow Jones, our bias is to look for selling opportunities. So our focus is going to be on these 3 areas. So I know it does seem as if it is quite big, but that is because the markets really did move quite aggressively to the downside. So these are the major levels that we'll be focusing on to look for sell. Now, it does seem that this market is ranging, or at least between this particular level, bouncing between these areas right here. But it's the same story that we've told on the other pairs right here, where if the price is not necessarily good enough, we potentially need a better price. So yes, the price managed to come to the downside very aggressively. We got a pullback. Coming back within this area, the seller has attempted to come down. We could not get the market coming down lower. Similar situation, we can see how many times it's attempted to come down. The fact that it's struggling to make any new lows and it's bouncing off this area, potentially this is not a good enough price for the sellers to actually take a big amount. So ideally, even if you just end up taking it into consideration of you going to buy something at a shop, you're more likely to buy, or at least to, if you were the shopkeeper, you're more likely to sell a lot more at a higher price in comparison to wanting to sell something at a lower price. So it's a similar situation. This is not a good enough price. If you want to sell more, you'd rather sell it at a higher price. That's potentially what we're waiting for. So in this situation, let's wait to see if we can potentially get this market coming in a bit higher, or at least because you can clearly see the pullback is coming in, even the way the buyers are coming in. So hopefully we can get the price coming in, exciting people to look for those buying opportunities. And if we do see signs of big boy sellers coming in, at that point in time, we will be looking for selling opportunities. If we do go up to the 1 hour time frame, there does seem to be also some sort of support and resistance area here, because you can see how aggressive the market is. So just because we do have this as an art, be aware of this blue level as well. We could end up finding the price also bouncing from such a level before the price does end up going to the downside. So remember, we always point out, buy with buyers and sell with sellers. You can clearly see areas where sellers have reacted from is there, another area right there, and one at the top. That's the reason why we also point out certain levels for the best places to look for those selling opportunities. So I hope the game plan is clear on the US 30 or the Dow Jones as we move on to the metals. So we'll start off here with silver. Now on silver, yesterday and today, sorry, apologies, let me just remove this. You can clearly see our bias has been for selling opportunities since Monday, and you can see the price has managed to come to the downside quite nicely. So today, the bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. We'll be focusing on these three areas. Right now, it does look as if the market is attempting to go to the downside. But one thing you'll realize, or at least most people right now, when they see something like this, what most people will do, they'll start jumping in on selling opportunities. They'll put their stop losses right there. That's not the best thing to do. The fact that the timing has not really come into effect yet, you could easily find that the price in this situation is just inciting people to look for those selling opportunities. And then you could easily find the price coming in, stopping all those people out, coming back within this area of interest before we do end up seeing the selling opportunity coming in. But you can clearly see, we're looking at the small area. This is the buyer who seems to be giving issues, or at least is the one who has pushed to the upside. So this is still the buyer's market right there, at least on this pullback. So maybe unless the price breaches and holds below that area, but that might not necessarily be the best because it will not necessarily give you a good risk to reward on this trade. So in this situation, for us, I think the best thing for us to do is wait for either the pullback to coming in within the support and resistance area, or alternatively, we need to be patient on this pair. The price breaches and holds below. Definitely, we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities there. But for right now, I would not advise you to start chasing the market on silver. So I hope the game plan is clear on what we're looking at. We're still looking for sells, but the pullback, I think, should still be coming in a bit before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now on gold, yesterday and today, our bias is to look for selling opportunities, or at least, yes, today it's look for selling opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be looking at for those selling opportunities to come in. So we have these three areas of interest for sells. So right now, you can clearly see the market did manage to end up coming to the downside, breaking a support and resistance area to the downside that we did end up having, because we did end up having it for a buying opportunity the day before. But you can clearly see we managed to break this area to the downside. We've gotten a pullback. It does seem to be starting to come to the downside. There's potential that this could actually be the move coming down. And maybe if that's the case, potentially also the case for silver. But I think for us, the main thing we'd rather wait for is a pullback coming in for us to look for selling opportunities. Since we would have already missed that trading opportunity there, the only alternative I think would have, as you can clearly see, this is the buyer's market where the buyer was holding. I think there's potential rather than it going all the way at the top, which it could still there's still a potential that the price might end up just pulling back to this support and resistance area before coming to the downside. We wait to see what ends up happening. But remember, gold and silver, they're mainly active during the US session. It doesn't mean that they won't be active during the Asian or the London session. It says that if you do end up going back in time and looking to see when is this market mostly active, anytime you see big move, you will notice that's either at 4:30 or 5:30 or so. So between the US market, okay, so between 4 and 5:30, that's when you will usually find the market actually moving quite a bit. So buyers is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. We wait to see what ends up happening. But if the price does manage to break and hold below this area, we will definitely be looking for selling opportunities there as well. But remember also, the fact that we're purely technical with the indices, gold and silver, it means that if the price does manage to break the red support and resistance area to the upside and holds above, then at that point in time, our buyers will switch and we will start looking for buying opportunities there. So I hope that is clear on all the kinds of pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched all the pairs on the sell side with the pairs on the buy side, including the indices. So I want to see if I can address some questions. So I'm seeing Anthony Wahome saying, do you think gold is on a downtrend? Let me say on the short term, yes, because one thing to realize is that overall, especially when you go to a higher time frame, you can see according to the bigger time frame, we're back within a very big area where the buyers, we could even potentially be in some sort of huge range. So on the short term, yes, we are on a downtrend, but remember that's the reason why even the fact that I'm saying if the price breaks and holds above the red SNR, we'll switch and actually turn into a buyer at that point in time. But for now, as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area, we will be looking for selling opportunities. So I hope that's clear for you, Anthony. Yeah, because you can clearly see the way the market has really struggled. We are within some sort of range, bouncing within these levels. That the price has broken that range to the downside, we could potentially, or at least the price holding within that area does have a higher probability of going to the downside. So I hope that's clear. I'm not really seeing any more questions, but thank you for the question, Anthony. So I guess that's it from me, from us today. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. Really do apologize about yesterday for not having the session, but at least we are here today. Remember, guys, if you do want to take any setups based on things that we do share, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are in the video description below. And remember, if you do like this content, if at least you're making some money, at least you're finding value in this session, the only thing we're asking for is for you to just drop a like. Really ends up helping out the channel. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe so that we can keep on growing together with you as well. So once again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Hope you have an amazing trading day. God bless, happy trading, and bye for now. Cheers, guys.